Sure. Okay, so those of you who are getting this recording, we just now had some time together with a couple of people who are on this call, and they were able to share a little bit of their grief and be able to share what's the thing that's really holding them back, or the challenge, or the frustration. And it's so healthy to be able to do that. And I really think we have to be able to work through our grief. I think we need a person to hear what we're going through and to validate some of our feelings. But I'm going to take you through the grief recovery roadmap, and I'm going to kind of take you step by step what that is, so that you will have a plan for being able to work through your grief. And then if you want to have another conversation, we can do that. Or if you want to join some kind of a group, I'll throw out an offer on that. And or if you just want to go through on your own and need more specifics, then I'll give you some options for that. Okay. And if you want to do one-on-one, that's a whole, I can do that too, but I just know that's usually kind of expensive for most people. So, I do have a thing on Grief Recovery Roadmap on Facebook. You're welcome to join that. I was kind of talking about some of the loss I had about my mom that recently died, and then a daughter, and I've had lots of other grief in my life. And in fact, when I was writing this, we had a family dog die, and that was another grief. And sometimes we have multiple grief, right? And as one person was sharing earlier, they weren't able to grieve that person because they had another grief happen. And how do you do it? It's like, so now what, right? And do I put that one on hold, or what do I do? So that's a very common question that happens here. And so let's talk about how to heal your heart when you have some of these things going on, where you're feeling overwhelmed by emotions, overwhelmed by your emotional pain, this inability to move forward. You might say things like, I'm feeling stuck in this never-ending cycle of pain and sadness. I cry every day. I can't seem to find any joy or purpose in my life right now. Maybe it's like, every day is just a struggle to get through. And people say different kinds of things around this one. Sometimes people will feel like they're just finding difficulty finding focus in their life and motivation. And so they might say things like, I used to be so driven, but now I just can't seem to concentrate. Or I feel like I'm just going through the motions, and I'm not feeling like I'm truly living. And so other ways that people say that. And then some people talk about that ruminating, maybe that's always going on in their head, and they're trapped in their thoughts. I had a loss of someone that I really cared about a lot. They didn't die actually, but it was like a breakup. And for years, had that person in my head. And I couldn't figure out how to move forward, move on. And it was just like, it seemed like it was always there. All right. Thanks, Lynn. So, if you can relate to those things, then you're in the right place. We really do want to help you be able to find emotional healing, to get some relief from your pain. We really want to see you find some clarity and direction, possibly find some growth and not waste your pain. As my best friend said earlier today, he learned that God doesn't waste this pain, and he doesn't want it to be wasted. He wants to be able to use it to help other people. And sometimes it allows you to think about a new direction in your life. You realize that life is short. So I'm going to do something different in my life. I'm not going to just allow the fears to hold me back or whatever. Or we only have one life, and all of a sudden you realize that. So there's all kinds of things that can come out of this loss if you let it. You can either get bitter or you can get better, as they say. And so I'm hoping that you're here because you want to get better. And so what we do is we try to help people move through that one loss of a loved one, or a relationship, or just about anything, or multiple losses, and without feelings of anger or guilt or shame or overwhelm. so that you can begin your next chapter in just 9 short weeks. And I know that seems for some of you like that's crazy talk. It can't happen. And I'm not saying that you're completely healed, but I think you can deal with a large percentage of it, maybe 80 or 90%, and then be able to, if you need to continue to work through the rest of it in, maybe with a counselor or, with the right group, let's say. So let's talk about grief recovery roadmap. This is the exact steps that I'm going to recommend that you take. I'm going to tell you, I did write, I used to work with high achievers. I still work with high achievers. And in that process, what I found is most people, they lack focus and energy. And so in this group, I would call that the next chapter. When you're ready, you could start the next chapter. But what I found is there was a group of those that were high achiever types that wanted to, live their best selves or whatever. But if you hit grief, I could help, I could help everybody but that group. Because that group, you can't just push through your grief, right? I mean, it's there. You can put it's like putting an inner tube under the water, and eventually all that emotion comes up. You can push it down only so long. I was telling somebody I used to work at a hospital, and one day I'm the guy that would show up when people died. So I've spent a lot of time with losses and seeing families, people, cancer patients work through their grief. And one day I had 3 people die in one day, and in very differing, very dramatic ways in the ER or wherever. And I was going home and just I was grieving it. And then my wife I told her I'd take her out to a movie. And so we were going to go out to this movie, and I had just suppressed it all. And I was like, okay, fine, let's just go to a movie, you know? And so I'd suppressed all those emotions. And the first scene was of some kid that was dying of cancer. And I just started bawling in this movie. And my wife was like, "Are you okay? Do we need to leave?" And I'm like, "No, sorry." But it's like I just had that that needed to be processed, and pushing it away just, I've learned I've got to deal with it. Otherwise it will eventually hurt me, and it'll come back eventually. So anyway, that's why I wrote Grief Recovery Roadmap. In part was for that group. I could tell you more about me. I don't want to bore you with me. I am related to Amelia Earhart. That's sometimes an interesting fact. Um, that's how you can remember me, or I listen with my heart, ear, heart. I was a director in a hospital. I've helped many, many, many people through their grief and their loss, and some of them doctors, actually, and some of them medical students, and some of them pastors. So, uh, you know, even pastors can grieve. All right, awesome, Kiati. And so let's walk through this little journey together. Um, and Kelly, I can't help but go back. I'm not sure which one you're, a medical student or a doctor, but this doctor
There's
here
a
over.
high achieving group.
Oh, the high achievers. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. I looked down. I just started reading it. Okay, gotcha. All right, I'm going to move on. So let me kind of walk you through kind of this process. Um, I'm trying not to just bore you with it. And again, feel free to ask questions or whatever along the way. Um, but I think I believe and as I mentioned earlier, when my best friend, he says this was one of the most impactful processes he's ever gone through in his life. And he's got, you know, thousands and thousands of books. He's even an editor. So he's read a lot. And it's one thing to read, though, it's another thing to process all that knowledge, right? And so this process was a very helpful process for him. Definitely for me, it was one of the very impactful process for me too. And that's why I share, and that's why I help people through it. But I think this is the clearest and most. And by the way, I've been in lots of groups, and I've helped in lots of grief groups, and they were okay. I don't think that they were bad. Um, but they didn't help me move forward. They helped me have a place to share, which is good. It was a good part of it. But my goal is to help you move to your next chapter. My goal is to move you to finding enough healing that you can actually work through whatever it is, um, no matter what has happened in that loss. Okay. So I think it's the clearest, most predictable system for anyone serious about doing what it takes to achieve their healing goals through trauma, through their hurt, through their heartache, and to live free, to move forward, and to move past the one thing that's holding them back that they may not be aware of. And so I partner with you to achieve this in the exact order that I'm going to talk about. And the first step is what we call trauma, because that's what happens. And again, I was just thinking about my friend this morning. He told me, he says he didn't realize that he had trauma from a loss. Um, and he said it was actually his wife that kind of brought it up to him. And then, and it was like, what, I never even thought about it, because it wasn't, he did have his dad die, and that makes sense, but it wasn't just that was not the loss that was affecting him. It was some other loss. And so what we do is we utilize what I call the safe zone. And what I mean by that is you need a place where you can feel safe enough to be real and to share, and where you're not going to get your heart beat up more in sharing. And it's hard to find places like that. Okay. So that's kind of the first step, how to share without worry of judgments, uncertainty where to start. And that then leads to the second step. And I could go through each one of these more in detail. Each of these little, this is not a complete, but at least it's a pretty good quick overview of, like the results that you're going to get, the struggles that you're having at this stage, and the basic steps you need to take. Okay. And so, this might be where you're feeling, struggling to find a safe space to heal. Maybe you're overwhelmed about where to start. Maybe you're feeling frustrated about burnout or judgments from others. Or maybe, you have a fear of sharing what's really going on with you. Maybe there's shame or whatever. Okay. So anyway, just want you to know. So the next step on this journey for me, for you, would be to set some slots to regularly deal with your grief. That would be the first step. Okay. Set 9 to 10-hour slots on your calendar and say, I'm going to deal with my grief. Now, that's me assuming that you may be going through group coaching with me, because I'm going to help you get lasered in and exactly what you need to do. So you may need to say, I need to have some more time than that. I may need to have, at least every week, I'm going to put this time slot into my calendar, and I'm going to deal with my grief. Okay. So, and then there's other steps involved. Okay. So, and again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these steps. But I do think these are the steps you need to take in the right order. And you might go, no, this is the step I'm on right now. And that's fine. And I want you to realize, I got you. I know where you are. And I'm going to suggest you probably need to go back to the beginning right here to this step. Okay. All right. So anyway, what this from there, what happens is you get into grief beliefs. So when you start to go, okay, I know I'm grieving, but, and I can't tell you how many people I've had on this call, and they're like, you don't understand, or you're just another shyster. And I get it. You're dealing with your grief. You know, you've got emotions going on. And what happens is we get these beliefs around this, okay? And what I mean by that is you've been taught your whole life certain things about grief that you may not even be aware of, right? That first pet that died, you you probably learned some things subconsciously that you're not even aware of around grief. Um, Maybe it's like, just get another one, just get another fish. It's only a fish, right? Or whatever that you're grieving. And so we have to deal with these griefs, these beliefs, that if you're not aware of them, they will run your life, as Carl Jung says, and they will run your life. If you're not aware of them, they will run your life, and you'll call it fate. It must just, I've always been told you have to be strong, be strong, don't cry, big boys don't cry, or whatever it is that you've been taught. And again, you may not be aware of it. So we try to make some time to being aware of what the beliefs are that you've had. Even if you were taught you were supposed to be strong and silent. We're gonna work through those, and then um, how to do that without doubting if you're grieving the right way. And then that leads us to the third step, which is the de-stressors framework. And what I mean by this is where you begin to realize that maybe you are masking your true feelings with some things. And if you're not careful, you could be masking, you could be de-stressing. We call them de-stressors because there's a lot of emotion around grief. And there's a tendency to go to things to make ourselves feel better. Okay. And if you're not careful, it could be alcohol, it could be sex. Someone said last time, it could be, all kinds of different things. And if you're not careful, that can become an addiction too, right? And so how to work through these de-stressors without shame or uncertainty of how grief is affecting you in a negative way. And that's all part of this triage, right? Recognizing what's actually going on here around my grief, okay? Stage two is what I would call triage. The first one was actually the trauma. Let me say that again. The first step is all about the trauma that you face. Now what we're trying to do is like triage all that trauma and after you've recognized it. And so the first step in that is to actually just recognize that you've got a history of grief. So we try to go through your entire grief of your life. And so we literally go from birth to the present and recognize that you have grief and you're struggling to remember the past maybe, but how to help you do that without struggling to remember the past, or adding more trauma to you, okay? And that's basically becomes an awareness of your grief that you've had since birth, okay? The next phase, step in triaging all of this that I think is most helpful is, and this is one that you think often a person thinks they already know, but sometimes they change. And that's finding that one key relationship that's going to be able to help them move forward to work through. And that shows you how to uncover what grief is restricting you in that list of history that you've had. And again, we want to work through help you move forward past all of your grief, okay? Not just the one thing, but there's often a hinge pin that can often affect all the others. And if you learn how to grieve that one, it's like the dominoes begin to fall, okay? So it shows you how to uncover what grief is restricting you or unresolved, how to do that without fear of talking about the past, because sometimes we're afraid to talk about that particular relationship. Maybe there's shame around it, or guilt. And so that's all part of triaging. And then the final thing is to create a healing checklist. And this is hard. This is not easy. I'm not saying this process is easy. The process is simple, is a very simple process, but it's not simple to go there always. And so this is where we create a list of things that need to be healed. Maybe things that have been done to you in this relationship, maybe things you've said or done in the relationship. And it's hard, right? If someone dies and you never got a chance to resolve that or have one last hug. With my mom, I am so grateful that I got to be with her in the hospital for that month, and then into hospice. Um, it Oh my gosh, it was so hard to have that last hug, you know, so hard, but I'm so grateful for it. Because I know I could have been stuck, with a memory that I wish would have happened, that I didn't get some of the things I wish I could have said or whatever. So this shows our clients how to create an exact and complete list of those inner hurts that need to be healed, and how to do that without knowing where to start or fear of thinking that you can't do it. And then that leads us to what's called the one-page completion letter. I call it completion letter. A lot of people call it different things, and they have different ways of doing that letter. I think there are some things that are really important in that letter that you need to add, how to say goodbye and actually saying goodbye to that relationship in some ways. But if you don't have the other things to back it up, and you haven't brought those things to the surface, I find that it's kind of incomplete. And again, I'm not saying that you're going to have a complete, absolute completion. I like the word complete. A lot of people call it closure. Um, I don't know. I'm hoping you'll never forget that person. I hope, just like we were kind of talking earlier, it doesn't mean that you're going to forget this person, but it allows you to not have the emotions stuck in you, so that you can move forward with your life into probably the things that person would want you to move forward on. And then stage 3 is trust. And so it's one thing to kind of get some resolve. Now it's another thing to start moving on and forward with your life, because sometimes we feel like we're going to feel guilty for doing that. So once we've worked through that trauma, that's where we kick off the trust stage. And there's 3 steps for that. We're going to read then the closure letter, and do that without procrastinating. And you're going to push through your pain and the fear and the anxiousness. So we're going to hold you accountable to that. You don't have to, but by this stage, everybody wants to, and they're usually pretty much going, I want to go first. So this is just a really healing step for a lot of people. And then we move into the completes and coulds process, where we realize the lessons that we've learned and the good that came even through this very, very bad situation. And I know some of you don't feel that, and you're not ready to move on right now, and it's okay. And so we do work through this step, thinking about hopeful goals, maybe some lifelong support systems that we may need, even if you're not ready to move forward. And then the final step in the grief recovery roadmap is your next chapter. And this is where we're going to help you find some clarity about finding hope, having a clear vision about your future, connected with your purpose and your passion, even if you don't know what your purpose and passion is right now. And so if you'd like to get crystal clear about these things, these are the exact steps that I would recommend that you follow. I hope that was fairly clear. I know there's probably lots of questions and things like, and assumptions that maybe maybe that you've done this or whatever. I'm just saying, I don't know if it helps everybody, but I do know it's helped everybody that I've helped. Okay. So this is a fantastic process. I hope you find it helpful yourself. I hope that you will take a step for yourself. Again, I'm open to having a conversation with you. Um, And, or if you would want to get started, if you just want to have a conversation, you can do that at chatearheart.com. That's my name, /grief. And you can get on my calendar and we can have a conversation. I will put that in the chat box. Wait, let's see here. Y'all. All right, so there it is. And then let me ask you, I'll open it up for a couple of comments or questions. See if that makes sense to you. And then I will end with an offer if you would like it. If you don't, that's fine too. Did I put you to sleep? Does it make sense that there actually is a scientific way to deal with the heart stuff? Isn't that crazy? We're often existential, right? And it is the process causes you to have to be existential. You do have to feel and to get into your feelings. But it is also a process that, when done in the right way, can bring healing fast. Looks like somebody was going to say something. Yes?
I was going to say something. I like the fact that
and I can't hear you very well.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you feel kind of muffled, like maybe you're in a can.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to be in a can. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. I don't
And
know.
let's see. Yeah, I can barely hear you at all right now.
Okay. I don't know why. Okay.
I don't know if it's your speaker.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that worked great.
Okay. So I like the fact that when looking at grief, it's not just isolated. You can associate it with other that the process of grief can be inferred into um, other types of grieving that's almost like somewhat the same process of a loss. And I that's a good way of a different perspective of looking at that. And I think that it is a system to it. It can be systematic, and if one chooses to look at it and kind of open up and think out of the box, I think you can. And so, but that was really something to look at it. You know, I guess that's why I was crying for everybody that was sad, crying for everybody that died in somebody else's family. But it is a thing. I never looked at it like that in that perspective. So I appreciated that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and we never know how that maybe a loss that we're not even aware of is affecting us, right? Our body, there's books written about how that our body kind of keeps score, on our emotions. If we hold on to it, it can affect us physically. And so our emotions really affect us more than we realize. And it could be any kind of dark emotion can affect us. And over time, it can hurt us. I was listening to NPR radio yesterday night, and they were talking about the top things that they were learning and to share. And one of them was some organism that can 1,000 times more likely handle radiation, and why. That was interesting. But when they're come together, that's what makes it stronger. When they come together, right? They are more than the sum of their individual parts, which I thought that was fascinating, because that is why we need each other, not just God. We need each other. And the other thing that was fascinating to me is that there is an epidemic right now of lonely people. And the comment was, we need there, it needs to be looked at like a medical issue, because there is a way to solve this, right? And we need to take the steps. And because we aren't, it is affecting all kinds of ways physically with us. So when I was in the hospital, there was a lady that had come in. I went into the waiting room, and there was this huge room of people, and they're all just crying and bawling. And I was asking them about what's going on, and they said, well, our sister is about died, and they have her on a respirator. But they said the reason why they're crying is because their other sister died. And the other sister that was in the CCU, the reason what she said later is that her sister died, and she ended up having what was called broken heart syndrome, where her emotions shut down, and she about died because of her emotions. Most people wouldn't think that you could die from a broken heart, you know, but that's what happened to her. And once we kind of worked through her grief, a week later, she gave me a great big hug and she walked out of the hospital. I was like, what? She was on a vent, right? So our emotions are very powerful things. That's why you often see husbands and wives that are really close die within sometimes months of each other. So anyway, thanks for that comment. All right, anything else you wanted to share? Okay. Well, let's see, in our little bit of time here left, let me just kind of just share what I have is a thing that works through this process called Grief Recovery Roadmap. It's got transformational teaching in it. It's got for those who want, I try to give interactive group sessions, or if you go on just griefrecoveryroadmap.com, you can get the free whatever on it. And then I'll send you emails, and then that kind of help you understand it. But if you want to upgrade to a group, or if you want to buy the do-it-yourself, it's a certain price. And then if you want to upgrade, you can then get into a group. And I did put a video on the first one so you can see how in our group sessions, we do some very focused teaching for you to go to take that week and process through. And then the next week we actually do that homework, and then you get new homework. Okay. So that's why it's called interactive group sessions. It's a place where you can actually work through that together. And then there is personalized one-on-one support when you're ready for it and if you want it. And then people always want to know about the price and the cost. And so, the course has lots of stuff in it. It's like 28,000 words of content. It's written, it's audio, it's video, it's all of that's included on there. It has, I'll send you the PDFs. There is an overview recording, and right now that's $300, $295. And so it's got, videos and all that kind of stuff on it. If you're interested in the group coaching, um, it includes the course, the training. It's got I will be there. I'm not a great big huge organization. I really am just me and my assistant trying to help a few people get better in grief. I do that almost every day, but I try to open it up to the world, and that's how I do it. And so you get all this other stuff with it. And so that kind of adds up to this and that. also you can find on my website some, things like how to navigate the holidays, as I'm thinking about you guys right now. And that all adds up to a lot. But I do have a today offer, as we often do on these little sales things. So if you're interested in that today, I do have, it's $1,000 or $995. Or if you email me back, $395, 3 payments, we'll probably get started the first week in January or second week in January, probably on Sunday nights, but you can check with me for sure if there's something that works better for you. And so, and if you want that discount tonight, you're welcome to go. Let me just see. I think I have it. I can never remember which of these little links work. I think that one will take this link right here if you want to cut and paste that. That one should take you to this page. And if you just put today in it and hit, continue the payment, it will take off $500. Okay. So I think, oh yeah, if you need a little bit more information on it, of course you can ask me, but let me take you to one other little link I noticed it was tonight. I noticed it didn't take you to the discount page. So that's why I gave you that discount page first.
All right.
Oh, hey, I'll go with you. Give me just a second. Of course, my daughter is at a dance tonight, so we're going to go pick her up. So this is, conditional money back guarantee on the coaching. So as long as you show up, if you don't get help out of it, I'll give you your money back. And I think that's all. That's all I needed to share tonight. So thank you for being on this call. And I feel like I'm leaving a baby out there, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and now I'm just leaving you, and I hate that. But if you feel free, you can always feel free to email me back. If you need anything, don't stay stuck. Don't let money keep you back either. I'm really here to kind of help you the best I can with the many people that have helped me through stuff. So I'm paying it forward, and I want to help you as well. So blessings to you tonight. I'm sorry I have to go, and otherwise I'd hang out and talk to a little bit more, baby. All right. So peace. Thank you.